Toastmaster. I got a red flashing light. Yes. So I stop. I'm gonna showboat a little bit today, and I hope you'll indulge me. After all, it's my speech. Let me move things around just a little bit so I can do what I want to do. The title of my speech is When John and Mary Stretch. It's a beautiful thing. My concept is to tell you about a situation that exists for a lot of people and a consequent opportunity that exists as a result, action that can be taken, and what the results might be. And I'm going to use a semi-real life, names are going to be changed to protect the innocent or the guilty. I'm going to use a semi-real life example so that we can relate this to real people and not just talk about numbers. I'm going to talk about what happens when it's time for us to pass money to our heirs. There's a concept called the stretch, or the multi-generational IRA. This concept is part of the Internal Revenue Code. I've been doing research and studying and taking classes on this for the last year and a half. And I've gone through a number of things. Take Charge of Your IRA by Richard Duff, who's a lawyer and a chartered life underwriter. Your Life, Your Legacy, The Fundamentals of Estate Planning, along with a class I took with an attorney in Austin, Brad Wewell, who does primarily only estate planning. And last but not least, very important to the concept, is what I have right here, which is a printout of publication 590 by the IRS. Now that sounds like exciting reading, doesn't it? But I've spent a lot of time with this, and I've spent days and months and weeks going through it. And I've highlighted a number of areas, and the most important key area in this publication is the life expectancy tables, which determine when and how you must start taking money from your IRA so that Uncle Sam, IRS, can collect his cut, his taxes. Now that may vary in terms of the amount of taxes based on an individual situation, but eventually Uncle wants to get some taxes, whether it be income taxes, estate taxes, or otherwise. Those tables are in here, and they mean a lot on how this concept works. Now, a lot of people think they've taken care of their needs. If they have modest means, they're not super wealthy, but they've got a little bit of money. They think they may have taken care of it if they have a will. And they've named a few people in the will. And certainly that's better than no will. But there are additional steps that can be taken to protect the assets and do more kindly by the beneficiaries than just a will. A will by itself leaves some things to be desired. A will creates a situation where probate has to happen. That's a legal process. It takes place in a court with a judge and attorneys are involved. It costs money and it takes time. Minimum probate in Austin, Texas these days is about 9 months, and it can take a year and a half or longer, depending on the situation. So all of that creates unnecessary delays while when dad and mom have passed away, kids are looking for their inheritance. Planning, of course, is important. So I want to get right into some planning and the example that I mentioned earlier. So let me set this up. We have John and Mary. They're about 65 years old. They've just retired. They've taken care of their needs pretty well. They've got a nice pension coming in. They've got long-term care insurance. They have health care coverage. Their house is paid for. They have no debt. And they want to do something nice for the kids. They have John Jr. I made this easy for you. We got 4 Johns in a row. So we got John Jr., who is the parent of John III, who has, in the last 2 years, become the parent of John IV. And then there's Charlie. Don't forget Charlie. Good old Charlie. We're going to talk a lot about Charlie. Charlie is John Jr.'s other son. We got the family tree, right? So there's the parents, 3 kids, or excuse me, a child, 2 grandkids, and a great-grandchild. Okay. Now, John and Mary have about $50,000 right now that they can allocate towards doing something nice for their family. They have other assets, the house, and a few other things. But this is some money they want to dedicate to the purpose of blessing their children and grandchildren. So it's 2008, they've got $50,000. First thing that comes to mind for most people who have it maybe thought things through or researched it as they might, is that that $50,000 could be equally divided amongst the 4 heirs, the son, the 2 grandkids, and the great-grandkid. $12,500 each would make a nice gift. John and Mary could simply sit down today and write them a check, be done with it. Now, they start thinking about it, however. That may not be the smartest move, because it may not truly be the blessing they intended to be. For one thing, remember I mentioned Charlie? Well, they call him Good Time Charlie. Charlie's 23 years old. He's been in trouble since he was a young teenager, getting kicked out of schools. He's been in trouble with the law. He seems to have a notion that it's his purpose in life to chase wine, fast cars, and fast women. And he occasionally gets caught up in illegal drugs or substance abuse. So Charlie's got some issues. So that's a concern to John and Mary, and if they give him $12,500 right now, they know what's going to happen in Charlie's case. Charlie's going to go on a tear. He's going to leave his job that he just finally got after losing the last one, and he's going to take off across the countryside and burn through that money like nobody's business. So maybe they need to think through that a little bit and do something a little different. In the process of researching it, John and Mary say, we've been conservative all our lives. We're pretty cautious. Let's hang on to this money and see if we can make it grow a little bit. And somewhere down the road, when we pass away, we'll pass it to our heirs, and it'll have gotten bigger and become more money. That sounds like a good move. So they do that, and by the time they're 85, 20 years down the road, that $50,000 has grown to $140,000 if it made a mere 5% interest. That's a pretty conservative investment. Now they can split $35,000 4 ways amongst the heirs, who are all 20 years older. But there's more they can do. $35,000 split amongst the heirs might offer the same challenges for Charlie, who may not have cleaned up his act yet, and who knows what the others are doing by now. So they take a look at the stretch IRA, the stretch option. They have to do this while they're still alive. They can't do it after they die. And they define in their documents exactly how they want this money to pass to their heirs. They're going to split it equally, and they're going to do it in a lifetime of payments over the entire life expectancy of each heir based on their age, based on the uniform single life expectancy tables in publication 590. And the result is going to be, in the first year after they die, let's say they die at 85, 1667 to John Jr., 902 to John III, 860 to Charlie, and 582 to John IV. But the neat thing about this is the monies keep building over the time, the remaining balance of the account that's not paid out. These checks are paid annually, and I've not illustrated every year. These are 10-year increments. You can see the checks go up for John to 5501. That $50,000, what started out as $50,000 20 years ago and grew to $140,000, over the lifetime of these 4 heirs will total $515,000 based on this way of doing it. Johnny IV, the great-grandkid, who was 2 when they set this plan up, gets over his lifetime $225,000. He gets a check every year on his birthday. Here's what that last check looks like to Johnny Jr. $12,823 on his birthday when he's 82 years old. Happy birthday, with love, Grandpa and Grandma. Do you think Johnny Jr., whose grandparents passed away 40 or 60 years earlier, is going to think highly and nicely and remember those grandparents? They can leave a legacy for a lifetime. The stretch, John and Mary, when John and Mary stretch, it's a beautiful thing. Mr. Toastmaster.